Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever get nauseous when you exercise? And then the next question is do your clients get nauseous when you exercise? So this is what we're going to do in this video. We're going to talk about a little bit about what nausea is, what causes it. Look, it's fairly common. For sure, I'll tell you real quick that when I used to train way back when, kind of the goal during some of our workouts, particularly leg workouts, we would literally bring a trash can with us to the squat rack. And the goal was to see who could throw up first. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but the idea was that if you were training so hard that the guy who was training the hardest would throw up first. Vomiting and nausea are two different things. They are, of course, obviously related, but what we want to do in this video is kind of talk about nausea, because I hope that you don't push your clients so hard, or you're not pushing your clients so hard that they do actually throw up itself, right? That they vomit. We don't want that to happen. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but your preference from a customer experiential standpoint is not to have them vomiting. Now, getting nauseous, it happens, and it happens probably more often than not. And quite often, because it's very personal, clients won't even tell you, but you can ask them. And that's going to be one of the things you definitely want to be doing when they're training, because you're watching them, you're looking at them. Okay, remember, from a purely cardiorespiratory perspective, we want to know intensity, and we use the look test and the talk test. But the other real world component of the look test is I'm looking to see how my clients are doing. I'm telling them to do things, and then I'm kind of watching them and going, you feeling nauseous right now? Are you doing okay? Everybody doing okay? And I'm going to pinpoint you because you're the one going, I don't feel okay. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let me go ahead real quick and pull up our PowerPoint. Are your clients always nauseous? Now, here's the other thing, though, to keep in mind. Is it happening all the time? Real quick story. I had a student once many years ago who, after we had gone through our course and he had started training people, he had moved to another city, and he called me back a couple of months later. And he basically wanted to know a situation or a fix to a situation that he was in with one of his clients. And he says, I don't understand it. Every time we train legs, she's literally getting nauseous. And then this goes to the next level. She's getting sick. She's vomiting. Now, just so y'all understand, nausea and vomiting itself can be caused by a lot of different things. But what was happening was he was noticing it was very specific. It was only when they did legs. It wasn't when they trained upper body or whatever it was. It was only when they trained legs. And so I'm going to explain to you on the next slide why that happened. But I wanted to kind of get this started with that little story. And by the way, that's not the only time I've heard this. Me personally, although I don't generally get sick or vomit anymore because I don't train that hard, there are occasionally those times when I do get nauseous. That's why this is so important to know as a trainer when you're training folks. Now, look, obviously nausea itself, let me pull up my pen, my laser pointer. Nausea, by the way, which is a common physiological issue, right? Okay, nausea can be caused by a plethora, a ton of issues, medical conditions, right? So anything from migraine headaches to actual issues related to pancreatitis, to liver issues, anything related, and I'm talking pathological, I'm talking about medical stuff, will cause just basic nausea, and of course could lead to vomiting. Balance issues, I got a big one with this, just so y'all know. I can't go on, I love going to Disney, but I can't go on any of the rides at Disney. I can't even go on the little kiddie rides at Disney. Why? Because I got an inner ear issue. Apparently, I never had it medically checked, but trust me, I got a balance issues, right? And if I close my eyes and I actually start to feel nauseous. In fact, as I'm as I'm talking to you right now and I'm thinking about a roller coaster, yeah, I can actually start to feel a little bit. No, I'm just messing. The point is that balance issues, inner ear issues, actually cause and do cause a fair amount of nausea in some folks. For some of you, nausea is just not even a thing you ever deal with, except under these particular conditions. Now, again, balance can be an issue. So hormonal issues, right? We know that pregnant women, for instance, tend to get what's known as morning sickness. Now, that's nausea going into full-blown vomiting, but not every woman, for instance, that has this gets it to that level. My wife, for instance, never vomited from morning sickness, but she was nauseous 24/7 in some cases. There were some days where it was just really difficult. But there are other hormonal issues that are also related to nausea. There's medications that people take, right? Remember, some of your, well, probably a lot of your clients are taking blood pressure meds. They're taking other medications that may have, just as a normal, the contraindications and issues and problems associated with them will be nausea and vomiting. Okay, it just depends on the med. So these are some of the things you'll see. Often folks won't realize that their low blood sugar is a problem. Yes, low blood sugar can actually cause moderate to higher levels of nausea. We see this quite often. This is, like I was saying, you'll see this with your clients, your training folks, and they do feel nauseous. I've had clients literally faint because their blood sugar levels were so low. And of course they told me, yeah, I was feeling a little bit of nauseous, but I just wanted, I could deal with it and I was pushing it off. But they had not eaten for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours before their workout if they were training in the middle of the day, for instance. Alcohol use, of course, obviously, if you get a hangover, but alcohol use itself can cause nausea. Of course, depends on how much you've ingested. Obviously, food poisoning, but we know that with food poisoning, it could generally lead to the next stage, nausea. By the way, nausea obviously doesn't always lead to vomiting. If you vomited, it was because you had a preliminary bout of nausea, right? But just because you're nauseous doesn't mean you're going to vomit. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. We want to kind of reduce the chance that somebody can actually move into the next stage, which is actually vomiting. So what are the other things that you have to look at? Well, in general, however, now again, we go back here, right? These are common causes. But the reality for us is that nausea related to exercise in general is associated with two things. Okay, two physiological changes that are normally occurring inside the body when you're exercising. And that's going to be the blood flow diversion from the digestive system during exercise to the working muscle. So blood flow diversion itself is a common occurrence, but it doesn't always lead to nausea. When it does lead to nausea, generally, and this is my experience, generally clients can deal with it. Okay, because they are going to sort of moderate the level of intensity of the training. Now, remember, the higher the level of intensity you're training at, the more blood flow diversion there's going to occur. Now, the problem with blood flow diversion is one of two things. One is for sure more common than the other. What are they? Can you think about it? Yeah, you ate too much before you work out. Folks, I don't eat. I don't eat before I train. I can't. If I have food, I mean, literally anything. Now, yeah, I can have a protein shake or whatever a little bit before I train, but I simply cannot eat before I train. I feel terrible when I do that. Yet I've trained with guys over the years where they must eat. Isn't that interesting? They have to eat food. And for some reason, the blood flow diversion does not affect their digestive system that much. For me, boy, if I eat anything, I got food in my stomach, man, it's a hot mess. I just won't feel well. And in some case, I will get sick, especially if I eat too much. So when I just don't eat. Now that's me. That's me. I'm not saying this is what you do with your clients, but this is something that you have to keep in mind. Everybody is different. And so it's not just the food timing, it's the total amount of food and the type of food. Yes, I can have some fruit and some other fast digesting material. Like I say, I can have a whey protein shake before, but I just prefer not to. So the blood flow diversion issue, right? That is one main. But again, I told you there were two reasons. One is too much food too soon before you train, and the other is not enough food. So if you're in that situation, I'm not. If you don't eat food and now you divert blood away, even more so from the digestive system, the body can sort of say to itself, man, this is a huge problem. And you will start to feel nauseous because, again, everybody is different. Some people, like myself, I don't have that issue. I have a cup of coffee or two before I work out in the morning, or before and I don't drink coffee at 4 p.m, but I can go without eating anything for 2 to 3 hours before I train. Any time of it doesn't matter. It's not an issue for me. For somebody, it's the exact opposite. So blood flow diversion. The other general reason why exercise-induced nausea and then potentially vomiting is lactate-induced metabolic acidosis. Now, acidosis itself in general is simply when blood pH goes below the normal standard. Blood generally is a little bit alkaline, but not much. Blood is normally neutral, 7.0, but in general, the average blood pH is about 7.5, something like that on average. That's a very minor alkaline state. It's when blood pH levels start to go below 7 into the upper 6s, and then it starts to get real squirrely, right? Your physiology goes sideways real quick as soon as blood pH levels go too low. There's almost a crossover point where the condition, that acidosis or that level of acidosis kicks over, and then you will vomit. Okay, that's clearly what's going to happen. Let me get back to that story I told you about. What do you think was happening? What do you think was happening to this individual that this student of mine was training, found herself nauseous and vomiting every time they did legs? What do you think? You tell me what was happening now. Now that you see these two examples, what do you think was the most obvious? What would be the most obvious issue? And then what I did to change it will reveal the answer, I guess, so to speak. Yeah, it was lactate-induced metabolic acidosis. Because of what? Lactate-induced, right? When you train, you're increasing the total level of lactate in the blood. Lactate levels, this is normal. Okay, the normal process is that muscles work and they train. Type 2A, type 2X muscle fibers generally are going to increase total lactic acid production into lactate, goes into the blood system. Blood pH levels start to go down, and the body starts to eliminate lactate where? Right through the liver, right? And so the normal process of exercising and training, depending on your intensity level, will increase lactate levels, but the body will normally reduce them back down to a manageable state. But if you're training so hard, or you're training muscle groups like the quads and the lower body to a certain level where lactate levels get too high, then the body starts to go into this state of nausea. You hit that crossover point and the body goes, okay, this is a huge problem. Boom, it will eliminate stomach contents. So what do you think was happening? Yeah, she was training legs. He was doing such a high volume of training. Remember, intensity and volume. The volume of training was so high that he was doing that for the most part, her body simply could not sustain that high level of lactate production, and it lowered her blood pH levels. I had seen it 1,000 times if I had seen it once. So what do you think I told him? You tell me. What would you have told? What would you do? Or what would you say? Yeah, look, when you're training legs, just lower the total volume. That's why we don't do 10 sets of squats for 25, 30 reps. It's too much volume for the average person, especially if you're not giving them enough rest time. So there are those two, generally the two main reasons when you're training your clients, they may get nauseous. Why? They've eaten too much food, and maybe they haven't eaten enough food. Maybe they have medications that they're on that are making it already a little bit of a problem, and now they exercise. Could be that the total volume of training, they're not getting enough rest in between the actual sets. Maybe you're pushing the volume, maybe the intensity is too high, but the volume is okay. Maybe you're only doing 2 sets of squats, right? Which is fine, but you're only giving them 10 seconds of rest and they're still exhausted before they do their next set. Well, you're going to induce this metabolic acidosis. Now, I know some of you're probably saying, well, what about the respiratory metabolic condition? Yes, they work together, but generally it's going to be essentially because of lactate buildup. Yeah, respiratory wise, if your clients are not able to eliminate carbon dioxide enough, that will also lower blood pH levels. Yeah, that's combined in with it. But the point is that it's generally going to be due to you're doing too much without enough rest time and allowing the body to eliminate or reconvert the lactate back into glucose through the what we call the Cori cycle during their workout. So what do? Number one, ask yourself did you eat too much? And if that's the case, what are you going to do anyway? You got to back off on the intensity. Allow your client to recover. Don't tell them to go home. Now, look, if they vomit, look, that's your call. If they throw up, okay, normally vomiting is one thing. Rinse your mouth out. If you feel like you can train, we can finish up the workout. That's entirely up to you. I don't recommend that, but I know trainers that do that. But if it's just nausea, generally backing off on the intensity level of what they're doing, giving more rest time. Deep breaths is another thing you've got to really understand. Breathing is critical to lower the total acidosis, metabolic acidosis, and allow the body to go through its normal recycling of lactate back into glucose in the liver. Generally, after a couple of minutes, allowing a client to back it off a little bit, whether they ate too much or it's because you did too much with them, that will generally allow their body to physiologically normalize and allow, by the way, blood pH levels can modulate fairly rapidly. Okay, so a blood pH level below 7 can move very quickly back up into the 7.2, 7.34 range, somewhere around there fairly quickly. You just got to allow for recovery. Deep breathing through the nose, exhaling. And by the way, I'm not saying to drink water or not drink water. Some people it helps, some people it does not help. Realize this, when it comes to a client feeling nauseous, if you can do those two main things, slow it down, back it off, deep breathing. If you do those things, the client will be able to tell you for sure whether they're ready to go back in. What do you do if they're ready to start back in after they've been nauseous? What do? Yeah, back off on the intensity a little bit. Allow them more rest time. Maybe the weights are too heavy, something like this. Be smart when you do this. Make your adjustments fairly quick. Make sure you're looking at your clients. Again, they might not tell you they're feeling nauseous. How many times have you done assessments or you've taken a client that's never worked out before? You bring them in and you do too much with them and they get sick, right? They vomit or they feel nauseous. It's not good from a client experience perspective. So be smart about it. Watch your clients as you're going through the training. Understand that new clients probably need to have a little bit more kid glove type of scenario for, right? They need kid gloves, not so much with the clients that you've been training for a while, but for sure with your new clients. Be careful. Better to do a little bit too little than to do too much. You're not impressing anybody by beating up clients. We don't want to do that. So be very, very careful. Hope that this was helpful. Remember, if you like the material and you like the content, please subscribe to to our YouTube channel. You can always hit the subscription button as well, so you know when the material and content is coming out. If you have any questions on anything we go over here, you got to let us know by putting the comments down below underneath this video. Let us know how we can help and assist you in becoming the best trainer you can be, and actually moving forward in the fitness industry to be a leader in the fitness industry. That's what we're here to do at Body Design University. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you all next week. Take care.